You prefer using that microphone? You can.
No, this is fine. This is fine. I'll hand that one around. So is it, how would you, is it Kenga?
Kayenga.
Kayenga.
Yeah.
Close?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay. Climate IQ.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking his name.
Oh, okay. Right. Climate IQ, right, that's easy enough. All right, so I think we're going to get this next session started. Last session of the afternoon here in this facility. It's going to be a really good one. Two very, very interesting approaches on using apps to solve real problems in very, very creative ways. So, okay. Seems to be working. Okay. Is this mic picking me up? All right, very good. So anyway, so I think everybody knows how we do this at this point. We're going to do introductions first of all. Introduce myself. I'll have our presenters introduce themselves. We'll play the videos. Then I have some questions for the presenters. And then I'd like everybody here to think of some questions, and so we can have a nice, interesting Q&A section, and then we'll do our breakouts here and over here. So I'm Dave Miller from a Clean Energy Venture Group. So we are an investment group focused on early stage clean energy companies. Over the last 11 years, our group has invested in 29 companies. Evaluated thousands of companies. We have 20 partners. Our approach is very hands-on. Folks in our group have all started companies, run companies, sold companies, sat on many, many boards. So when we invest in companies, we work very, very closely with management, and that tends to be very effective. Fortunately, the companies we've invested in, very early stage companies, have by and large grown and done very well commercially post our investment, and we intend to continue that over the next 10 years in a variety of different ways. Each of our presenters, can you just introduce yourselves for now?
So hi everyone, so my name is Mengqi, and I'm from Climate IQ, and we're based in New York. So what we're doing is to design this web-based app to help people measure their property climate risk in the past and for the future. We believe this kind of information is very important because a lot of this kind of assessment is done at a broader scale, like by governments or on a regional scale. So we're really trying to downscale our analysis to property level. So people can learn about like potential financial loss that could be caused by extreme weather events in the future, and also like potential flooding depth and inundation area, or like hurricane tracks and sea level rise, all these kind of risks. So they can make decisions actually against their property. So yeah, that's what we do.
And I'm Lucas, and I'm here with Kayenga. And what Kayenga does is tries to promote user-led housing. I'll let the video speak for the rest.
Hey, you know, we will see the videos. So, can we play the videos, please?
In the last decade, urban flooding events have become more frequent and more severe. Sea level rise and hurricanes bring more threat to coastal cities. City properties and infrastructure are especially at the risk of extreme climate events. Scientists have found a correlation between climate change and extreme climate events. The impact of climate change will be huge. For urban planners, insurance companies, property developers, and other stakeholders, climate risk has become an important lens through which urban resiliency is examined. However, the data and information is not easily available. Therefore, we've come up with our solution, Climate.IQ, a web-based application that will alert the future climate risk and financial loss for urban properties and infrastructure. Climate.IQ allows you to examine different risk layers, including urban flooding, sea level rise, tropical cyclones, and more. It then shows you the infrastructure or properties at risk on each street or block. By clicking on each, you can see the distribution of them and their risk score from 0 to 100 on a map. Clicking on an individual property or simply searching for its street address will take you to the more detailed risk analysis of the asset. You can see the historical risk level and financial loss, as well as monthly average risk score. One of our innovative features is to forecast future risk level and financial loss based on climate change scenarios. The tool will not only be essential for urban planning, but also becomes useful for property owners, realtors, and insurance companies, as it provides forecasted insurance premiums and potential damage information. We have an experienced team behind the design and building of Climate.IQ that includes software developers, scientists, data analysts, executives, and web marketing specialists. We have recently won the MIT Climate Collab competition for high novelty, impact, and feasibility, and will release our minimum viable product soon for testing. We are seeking 200,000 to advance our model development and technology innovations. We also plan to establish working relationships with the public and private sectors, including city governments, insurance companies, property managers, and others. We look forward to bringing this application to life to help people build a more climate resilient city.
Hi, I'm Lucas.
And I'm Ella. We're excited to present our proposal, Kaienga.
Kaienga is a software platform that gives people the power to design their own homes and neighborhoods.
We're from Wellington, the capital city of New Zealand. Wellington is a beautiful city nestled in hills and surrounded by the ocean. It has a thriving creative industry and a bustling coffee scene. Lonely Planet dubbed it the coolest little capital in the world.
But Wellington has a problem. Most homes don't have enough insulation, and in winter, the indoor temperature is 2 degrees Celsius lower than recommended. Our homes are also some of the least affordable in the world. To improve sustainability and reduce costs, we need to build more apartments. But most apartments built to date are lonely, anonymous, and cold.
We think that there is a solution that can make our homes more sustainable, affordable, and neighborly. Our inspiration comes from Baugruppen, an approach used widely in Europe. Baugruppen are building projects that are collaboratively designed by the future residents. This approach has a lot of benefits. Evidence suggests it increases sustainability because future residents invest in energy efficiency, cut down on unneeded features, and invest in shared facilities. These factors, combined with the fact that it reduces the risk of the project, mean that homes built in this way are cheaper than average. Finally, because residents are self-selected and work together from day one, the neighborhood has a greater sense of community.
We are building an online platform which will help facilitate building cooperatives by connecting future residents with each other and service providers, helping them to make decisions and capturing what they learn through the process to pass on to future groups. We are also designing a program of events to spark people's interest in building cooperatives.
We've started to find people who want to take part in one of these projects, and we've got a number of service providers who are interested in supporting them. We're looking to kick off our first project in Wellington in early 2017 and roll out across New Zealand by the end of the year. We think that many international cities could benefit from Kainga. Therefore, we plan to expand internationally in 2018.
But we need your help to do this. If you want to take part in a building cooperative, or you're a service provider who wants to partner with us, we want to hear from you. Finally, we need investment. We're currently bootstrapping Kainga, but funding will allow us to grow much faster.
Thank you very much for watching.
Fantastic. All right, so two very creative approaches, I think, in solving extremely valuable problems in different ways, but each one, I think we need these types of approaches. So I'm going to start off with some questions, and I'm coming from the perspective of being an investor. So I'm going to initially filter through that lens, and I could see both of these projects. You're looking to raise capital, is that correct? Yes. So the first question an investor might ask is, okay, you're providing something, this is for each of you, you're providing something that's incredibly valuable, but who's going to pay for it? How are they going to pay for it? How are you going to monetize this? And how do you achieve positive cash flow in your business?
So I think we have mentioned in the video that our target users include like property managers and realtors, developers, and also like insurance companies that deal with risk management, and also government agencies. So our potential model is that we make this software a subscription plan. And we actually, in the future, we're hoping that we can actually provide real-time data. So that generates like the long-term regular money flow. So we're not only looking at the long-term climate risk, but we're also looking at the real-time extreme climate events data risk. And I think also, I think these people, like the users I just mentioned about, actually will be willing to pay for this product because we have looked at the existing products in the market, and we haven't seen anything like ours, which is providing very helpful information that is built with sophisticated scientific models, but with an easily manageable interface. So I hope I answered that question.
Mm-hmm. So just to dig a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. So from their perspective, how are they going to view the value proposition? So they're making an investment in the product. They're making an investment in gaining this information. What will they see as the return on that investment they're making?
So you mean like for the investors?
No, well, for your customers.
For my customers.
Right.
So,
I mean, what's going to drive their buying decision? Mm-hmm. This is valuable, and there's no doubt that this is valuable information. But when you have their CFO, who's just looking at numbers, right, and all he cares about is the budget. Mm-hmm. And he says, okay, we're going to outlay some funds to get this information. Where are the funds going to be generated in our business that's going to be greater than the funds we outlaid for the service? Yeah,
so I think that really our values is to help people save money and time. So in terms of saving money, I think it's because we actually help people calculate the risk hopefully at a much more accurate level. So right now we're developing our flooding model. in New York City as a demo. So once we have all the results out, we can actually compare that how in the past some flooding risks haven't been predicted by like agencies like NOAA or NASA, but actually could be predicted by us. So we are trying to compare like the information provided by us and the available information in the market and how that can help, like for example, property managers save money from suffering from extreme weather events.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And for us, the first revenue model we're looking at is to charge commissions to service providers. So our platform will give us a bunch of people who are looking to build housing. And there are a bunch of service providers who will be needed to actually make housing happen. The first people being the banks. So in New Zealand, banks already pay a finder fee of 1% to 2% of the value of the loan for whoever brings them the customers. So that's a very simple source of revenue for us. Banks like to use us rather than using other sources because we've got that environmental and social slant to it. More exciting, I think, down the line is developers. So developers have a bit of a problem with their current model has quite a lot of risk to it. So at the moment, they have to go out and find a piece of land, get in an architect, design some buildings, and then pay a marketer to sell, to help sell them, sell these buildings. If they don't manage to sell a minimum amount of buildings, banks won't give them a loan to continue with the project, and so they end up having to write off all of that money. What we'll do is we'll already have the buildings pre-sold, so all they have to do is deliver on to our specifications.
All right, great. Okay, so some specific questions for each of you based on your presentations. So for Climate IQ, so one thing I noticed is that you're actually going to be going kind of on the ground and collecting, doing direct surveys in the neighborhoods, right? I mean, you're going to be asking people in those areas questions to gather information.
Yeah, actually, so our data is mainly comes from the public agencies, so like NOAA and NASA. So we collect the data such as precipitation, land cover, and soil, and we have scientists in our team that help aggregate all the data to produce the information such as flooding, return periods, and financial damage information. So, but we do collect. We hopefully actually, when user uses the software, they probably have to provide information about their house. I mean, we could collect some from the zoning data by the governments, but some of the more specific information from their houses, they actually can input into this tool. So to generate more accurate analysis.
Okay, so you expect your customers will be providing some of the data directly.
Yeah, part of it, but it's gonna be very minimum. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and then the other question I had is, so you're taking climate models, and in my understanding, and be completely naive, is, our understanding of climate models is when you think of climate as opposed to weather, it's over long periods of time, over large regions. You can make generalizations of where the climate is going. And so, the challenge is if you, downscale to very specific areas or properties and downscale to specific time periods, then you perhaps, my understanding in the scientific community is, is there established validity for being able to do that? Whereas, you can make pretty strong generalizations of where we're going over time and across regions, but how do you convince the scientific community that it's valid to downscale that to a specific property or a specific time period?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think that we are able to do the downscaling is not because of the climate models, but a lot of our data, we collect from the satellite data, that's downscaled to about 100 meter scale, 100 meter grid. That's our analysis cell right now, the unit that we're using. So actually a lot of things we're doing is looking at the historical data right now. So because that's the most available downscale data. But in terms of future, I think we probably have to be a little bit more general, but also in terms of sea level rise or precipitation change, all those data, you can find pretty downscale data. So in terms of those data source for the future. So yeah.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay, so for Kaanga, so one thing that struck me is you've looked at a model that's been very successful in Vienna and maybe Germany as well. And you kind of lay out all of the challenges behind this, right? And apparently those projects have overcome many of those challenges. So why not just copy success? If those projects have been successful, why not do pretty much what they're doing, but just do it in a different region?
Yeah, and I think that's what the platform is trying to do. I guess at the moment, all of those projects are delivered by service providers like architects who have developed expertise, but they don't have a scalable product. And what we're trying to do is build a scalable product, borrowing that sort of information.
Right, okay, so you know that it will work in specific instances, and you're trying to generalize it.
Exactly, yeah. Okay.
Very interesting. And the other question I had is on the sustainability piece. You know, you seem to be approaching it at maybe somewhat of a modular level where decisions are being made about sustainable aspects of the project, where, you know, you're setting the default as a very sustainable option and so forth. Have you looked at systematic approaches for sustainability of buildings? So there are a number of companies. It's a company called Ecotrope that uses MIT technology that, given the entire system of a building, can improve the sustainability and the cost simultaneously. So there's this idea of efficient frontier in investing, right? So it's like the efficient frontier of buildings, where you have, for a given sustainability, the lowest cost, for a given cost, the greatest sustainability or the lowest energy impact. So have you considered using a system like that, where your collaboration can move along that efficient frontier, right? Where they're making, instead of making a single decision about a modular piece of the building, they're making a set of decisions for where they want to sit along that kind of optimized design continuum.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I think what I would say is when, you know, we haven't finalized how the design process is going to work, but we're more and more leaning to the design process setting sort of principles or metrics that we want to optimize. So maybe you say, I'm willing to spend $200 to reduce or to increase energy efficiency by X%. And, you know, once you've set that up, then you turn it over to an expert like an architect to meet those constraints. But yes, that sounds like a great idea.
Right. Okay, so kind of integrating, so building upon approaches like that, you would be able to do. Fantastic. All right, so I want to open up. I want to make sure that folks here have sufficient opportunity for Q&A. So I think we have an active microphone here. So I saw someone's hand up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Everyone can introduce themselves.
Oh, okay. I'm Tom Manoff from Integral Scientific Institute. And what I'd like to do is find out if I'm really understanding the vulnerability assessment. So your product would be bought by an insurance company. It could go in and evaluate the risk of a particular property. The advantage to them is that they would not sell insurance to riskier properties. They would sell insurance to less risky properties at a lower rate because it'd be more competitive and they'd get more business, and therefore they'd be more profitable, while at the same time they were avoiding paying claims on properties that were too risky. Is that basically what you're offering?
Yes, so I think really we're trying to help insurance companies understand that there are areas that are at risk that they're probably not noticing right now. So I think after they get this information, what they can really do is probably to, you know, help with their premium designing and everything. So to make sure that the property is insured in some way for the future. So
it sounds like it would be a valuable tool for the insurance companies.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Katie Friedman with the Charles River Watershed Association. And my question / comment, I guess, is about climate IQ. So I'm thinking, particularly through the lens of the greater Boston area, and thinking about our watersheds and water quality. There's a lot of development going on in Boston and Cambridge in segments that drain to the Charles River. And so it'd be really neat to see developers using your tool. And I think I had seen in your pamphlet that you have data on runoff and things like that. If there could be a little pop-up that could come off saying, if you convert X% of your impervious surface on your site to green infrastructure, this is the amount of maybe say nutrient runoff or pollution you could decrease. And in terms of municipalities, there are total maximum daily loads of nutrients and bacteria that are allowed into the Charles River, and municipalities here have to make sure that they're decreasing those loads to meet that. So I think this could be a really great tool for those sort of problems.
Yeah, thank you. So actually in our flooding model, we build in like factors, variables like soil, vegetation, that shows that when you have when you have like the natural vegetation system, the flooding risk could be reduced much higher. So I think maybe in the future, we can make it more like a planning tool that they can maybe change the parameters to see, how this can help them like reduce the flooding risk. Thank you for that comment.
Okay, questions? Hi, my name is Alex Otto, and I'm with Rent Rocket. Actually, the New Zealand group and I were in the same category. Congratulations! I'm glad you made it.
Thanks.
So, my question for you is, on a rough timeline, when do you see one of these buildings actually being built? When does this become a reality in your timeline?
Sure. So we actually have a group in Auckland that's quite keen to get going. In general, these projects, what we found in the research is that they take 24 months or so to get done. When we actually talked to people, we never found anyone who actually did it in 24 months. But we're hoping that the platform really can cut that sort of time down to around that 24-month period. So that's from coming up with the idea straight through to having a building ready to be occupied.
Hello, my name is Sarah LaPuma from Sustainable Shorelines, and I was in your same contest, Menke. And I was wondering if you anticipated any pushback from homeowners or property owners that they're not under the FEMA flood map right now, and with your data that you would be producing, they would then be put into a flood zone or a place that has more risk.
Yeah, so we definitely have considered that this information we are putting in the public could be a little bit sensitive, in terms of like you said, the property owners, how would they feel if their property wasn't in the flooding zone, and now we tell them, oh, it might be inundated in the future. And also if the information becomes available to like property developers, potentially they are developing this huge revenue generating property like on the coast, and now we're telling people that, oh, this could be at risk, and how that's going to affect their financial decision. And a lot of these things can be pretty sensitive, but we still believe in that educating people and making this information available is really important, and that is our mission. So, yeah, I hope
agree.
That answers your question.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
This is actually a follow-on. So in that kind of scenario, for example, in Cambridge and Boston, there are developers who are aware of the risks, so they're going to be taking steps to mitigate and make specific decisions that will protect their property. But that's not data that you'd get from NOAA or NASA. So is there a way in your process of assessing risk where that kind of information could be populated, because potential tenants and renters seeing this information might the sensitivity of the data, but when people are taking steps like in New York City, the whatever it's called, what they're doing can that information kind of be integrated so that you can give a full picture?
Yeah, definitely. So I think like on the broader scale, we are trying to like collect data such as like the like flood defense infrastructure, like seawalls, levees, that, you know, there is data from like local government agencies. So those are not from like the federal agencies like NOAA, NASA. So we're also collecting those data. So trying to integrate that into our system. And also on the property scale, you know, like we said earlier, people can actually input the data about their house. So if this developer has potentially like developed features that help protect the property, so those information would be built into our system and considered into the assessment. So, yeah.
Hi, Rajesh from ClimateX. For a question for Lucas. So you're building, I mean, not only are you creating this platform that connects potential, residents to banks, maybe, and then to builders, you're also building upon a specific architectural model, right? That is successful in Vienna and others. It seems like a great opportunity to also educate people on that model itself, because I can imagine that people who have successfully built one set of apartments could be a fantastic resource for others, and connecting one group of prospective buyers to prior buyers could be a great revenue model itself, right? Both architecturally and
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So certainly people are very excited to learn about previous buildings. What we've found with people who've actually gone through this process and finished something is they've actually got too many people showing up on their doorstep, and they're kind of worried about privacy issues. We actually one of the shots we took, we almost got kicked out because they didn't really like us showing up with a camera. And they said, like, we've had hundreds of people, sort of coming and looking at this because it's really exciting and really interesting. We definitely want to get previous successes involved as much as possible. But I think one of the nice things about the platform is once all of those learnings have been captured, they can kind of be put in an information system rather than having to knock on the same person's door again and saying, share your project with me.
I mean, that would be what a technology platform would do for you.
Exactly. So it's not having to repeat there's no information transfer cost every single time.
Right.
Hi, I'm Ben Town from Pittsburgh. And I have a question for Menki. In the demo, in the video, it showed the risk assessment for tropical cyclones as varying what seemed to be a considerable amount from one property to the next. And I'm curious, did I see that right? And if so, how does the risk really vary that much from like one house to its neighbor?
So actually, the numbers you saw in the demo were like dummy numbers. Those were not real like statistics. So, but we are in the process of like developing a real demo for just New York City, and that's using all the real data. And hopefully that should be done in November. And then if you follow us, and then see. So I think, but to answer that question, hurricane, like tropical cyclones, that the damage usually doesn't vary too much. But so you probably in the real demo, you wouldn't see that much big variance of the data that are crossed to each other. So, but in terms of like flooding or other kinds of risks, it could be more like an issue. So the damage could really vary like from block to block. Yeah. So, but it really depends on the disaster type.
Thanks.
So if you sold to a developer who had properties that were distributed over a region, then it would be very valuable because then they would see very different risks depending on where in the region their properties were.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Other questions? Okay, well, a couple of other questions I can queue up for you. So for each of you, what would you say are the most significant barriers that you're facing today? And what do you most need to either overcome those barriers or to otherwise move your project forward?
So I think our biggest barrier is that sometimes people do not really care about the long-term climate risk. But I think that barrier is the problem. You know, that's why they also have the behavior changing section under this competition. But I think really we're trying to use the science and data to leverage the science and data that average people probably don't understand and make it into the information that people can understand. So that way they can see that it's gonna happen, you know. So it's not just some number in the IPCC report that it's only relevant to the science community. So that's really what we're trying to do. And we've seen like several like the there, and they have I've seen them like putting like a map of houses that could potentially be underwater in the future. So, and they have that map on the website, you know. So even they are trying to sell houses, you know, they're still kind of promoting this kind of information. So we've been seeing some of our potential users making this kind of effort. So definitely, I think we're moving along. So yeah.
So on the time frame challenge, right? So you can't say that, okay, your house is going to be underwater in 3 years and 7 months and 14 days, right? I mean, there's a very large range over which that might occur. So how do you motivate immediate action or motivate your customers to have, you know, an idea of how actionable that information is?
So I think that's why we also have, one of our outputs is the potential financial damage. So that information I think could be very valuable to like mortgage banks or like insurance providers or property developers. So I think here in US, the life cycle of a property could be over like 30 years. And also the mortgage cycle could also be that kind of long period. So I think providing the financial information on that scale is definitely helpful for them to act against.
Right. So there's a number that they can see of,
Yeah.
you know, how much this is going to cost them. It's great. Okay.
And for us, I think the biggest barrier, kind of understandably, is getting people's trust to build housing. So there aren't, you know, we have proof in Europe that it works, but no proof in New Zealand to date. And you know, we kind of, when we started this, we're very strictly following the lean startup methodology, you know, going minimum viable product. But the reality is, to get trust in the housing space, your minimum viable product has to be significantly better than if you're selling a pizza to someone, for example. I think overcoming the barrier, I mean, something like getting the award from Climate Collab has been huge because it gives us at least some people believe in the idea, so that's great. And yeah, I think just more of that kind of thing, getting more people involved, more partners who already have people's trust. So banks, for example, that sort of thing.
Right. So the classic catch-22 of, you know, once you're successful, everybody will believe in it, but you can't be successful until everybody believes in it.
Yeah.
Right. So small successes along the way.
Sure.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think what we'll do now is we'll break up into 2 groups. So Kayanga Cooperative Buildings over there, Climate X over there. And, you know, we have about 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll announce after this, we're going to be moving to the Media Lab. So I'll give you some notice on that. And a round of applause for our presenters, please.